Hi everyone, a very warm welcome back to the MEC-TEC garage. We're back on Trotter today. We are carrying on from where we left off in the last video. You would have seen at the end of the last video I got the sump back on. We're going to carry on with the jobs on this. We're going to start off with the rear axle, get that refilled, and then we're going to go through all the other bits and bobs from there. So without further ado, I'm not going to waffle on. Let's crack straight on, get back into the action where we left off, and get this thing back on the road where it needs to be. Right, I've just filled the rear axle back up with oil. I used the old EP8090 GL4 from Halfords. That's been recommended by previous people, so I've used that again. I've also obviously made it fill up. It's just over a litre, about 1.1 litres, so it's like trickling out the fill plug. And I've put a little bit of RTV on the thread, only a very fine little bit on the thread, just hopefully stop that leaking. Obviously in the future, so we still be able to get it undone, because obviously RTV is not that strong, so should be absolutely fine. So that's the rear axle now complete. I think I'm going to fill up the gearbox next from the top, and then we can change that gasket on the top of it at the same time and replace the missing bolts that are there too. So yeah, we'll get onto that, and then we'll go on to the next thing. Right, I've set you up underneath the van. I'm going to go inside, start filling up with oil, and hopefully you'll see it start to come out of that fill hole in a minute. Right, that should be it. You should just start seeing that come out now. There we go. As you can see, that's dripping now, so that is the right level. So we'll put a little bit of RTV around this fill plug again, and I'll put that in there because it doesn't actually come with a washer for the kit from the kit. So didn't think I was going to have enough oil for a minute, but I had a little tiny bit left over from when I did Stobart, so that was just fractionally under, and then that little tiny bit from Stobart's last bottle put it to the right level, so that's great. Right, let's get this on there, stop that leaking everywhere. Like that. Got to get my spanner on that. I can't remember which size it is. I think it might be 3/4 maybe. Just so happens I've got a spanner here that could fit. No, it doesn't. That was for the other plug. Right, okay. Let's try this one. 21mm maybe. Yeah, 21mm fits it. It's obviously an imperial size, but 21mm does fit it. So I'll give that a little tweak up with that. That should do the trick. As I say, I put a bit of RTV around the threads. I've used that rather than PTFE tape, because obviously the RTV is oil resistant, and as this is going to be basically touching oil all the time, you want it to be resistant, otherwise it will just disintegrate. There we go. So that is the gearbox now full. Now I want to go top side and put that new gasket on the top, the cover plate. That should be good. Lovely jubbly. Right, I've got the new gasket on the housing there, as you can see. I've actually cut this hole slightly bigger than it was originally after the experience we had with Justin's, where it was getting all bound up on the shifter. So I didn't want that to happen again, so I've cut it slightly bigger. And I've also used a little bit of RTV, and I've stuck it to this side of the housing, so at least it definitely can't leak between this side of the housing and the gasket. So I'm not going to glue it from this side as well, because you want to be able to get this off if you need to, and obviously it'd be a pain if it's glued down with RTV. So I'm just going to bolt this back on here now. I've cleaned up all the top of that housing in there. That is all nice and clean and shiny. There's no gasket material left on it, so we'll get that bolted back in. We can probably get the gear stick back on as well now, and then that is that section of it done. Now I'm still waiting for the split pins to arrive to put that clutch linkage in. So I think whilst I'm waiting for that, I'm probably going to have this rocker cover off and reseal that, because that's leaking as well. So we've got a new rocker gasket to go on there. We'll reseal it with some RTV, get that bit done, and then hopefully by the time we've done that, then them split pins will arrive and we can actually try and test out this gearbox and see if it actually works. Lovely jubbly. Right, the top of gearbox plate is now bolted down. It's got all the bolts in it all the way around. As you can see, I've put the cover back on the top now. Unfortunately, this cover is a bit worse for wear. This corner of it's actually missing. It's had a piece of rubber stuck over it in the past, so there's not much I can do about that, I'm afraid. But it is all back on there, obviously, so maybe that's something to look. When you watch this video, Mike, if you look out for one of these plastic cover plates in the future, only all done with 2 screws, it might be worth you swapping that out. I don't want to try and sort of bodge it down, because otherwise you won't be able to get back off again. So I'll leave that like that for now. It is screwed down, it's all secure. We can get in all the gears, obviously with the engine off, same as we could before. So let's hope it's like that when we put the clutch linkage rod in and start the engine, and hopefully it'll still be the same, and then we'll have a working clutch again. As I say, I'm still waiting for those split pins to turn up, so I'm going to go on to doing that rocker cover gasket next, I think, and stop that from leaking. Then we can refuel the engine with oil after that. I don't really want to, in fact I may put the oil in first, because then I can let it drain down and I can clean the top one and we get the gasket off. Yeah, we'll do that. So let's get the engine oil in, and then we can sort that top gasket out. Right, I've changed plans slightly. I couldn't get the damn oil cap off, so I've had to take the rocker cover off first and do it this way. As you can see on that corner there, the gasket isn't going right to the edge, which is probably why it's leaking. But having said that, the engine inside, if you look in there, is in very good condition. As you can see, very clean in there. Really nice engine this. So I'm going to get this oil cap off. Now I've got this rocker cover off. I just could not get it to budge. It'll turn, but it wouldn't move. So I'll get that off while I've got the rocker cover off. We'll get a new gasket on there, get that resealed, bolt that back on, and then we'll refill it with oil. And then that'll be another job off the list. Top banana. Right, there we go. That is our new gasket on there with a little bit of RTV underneath it to hold it in place and to hopefully seal it from leaking in the future. I'm going to give this side a little smear of RTV as well, just to obviously give it a bit of extra sealing power. And then we can get that fitted back on the engine. I've given the inside there a wipe round on the top surface as well, so it's all nice and clean with a bit of brake cleaner. So that is looking absolutely marvellous. So I'll get this RTV on here, we'll get this rocker back on, and then we can fill up with oil. Right, I was just laying underneath the van, checking over all the stuff I'd done, and I looked up and there was only one nut on the exhaust. Now, obviously I haven't had this running yet properly, so, and I remember Mike saying, oh, it sounds a bit throaty when he first brought it down to me. So I've obviously had a look underneath when I've been checking over all my stuff that I've done, and I looked up and said I had one nut on the exhaust manifold, or downpipe I should say, and I touched it, and that's all that's left of the exhaust studs. As you can see, the one with the thread left on it on this side is the one that had no nut on it, and the one that had a nut on it, which is the one that side, which has got literally no thread on it, was doing absolutely nothing. It was just spinning. So as much as it pains me, I think I'm going to have to take all the inlet and exhaust manifold off, because I can't sort that out in that little gap in there. As you can see, there's not a lot of room between the engine and the side of the shell, and obviously I need to sort that out because the exhaust won't bolt up. So this isn't something that I've actually sort of touched as such, it's just something else that's not quite right on the van that needs sorting out. So yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. So I think I'm gonna have to start unbolting. I didn't really want to take the inlet and exhaust manifold off, but it looks like we're gonna have to. So maybe have to wait for some new gaskets before we put it back on again. We'll see how bad the old ones are when we get it off, but maybe reusable, or they may not. We'll have to see. So yeah, that's the stage I'm at the moment. And there we go. Right, after quite a lot of yeah, you know what I'm going to say, quite a lot of swearing, I've got this manifold off, as you can see. Now these studs are absolutely annihilated. There isn't any thread left on them at all, this one particularly. So the next job now is going to be to try and get these out. Now this side, which is actually open-ended, this is the side I put a nut and bolt through on mine and on Dan's. Because it's open-ended, this side always tends to corrode more, and it always just snaps off. The captive side, for whatever reason, tends to undo. Now I've probably jinxed myself now saying that, but I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to try and put a new stud in this side, and if this one snaps off in the hole, I'm going to cut it off flat, drill it out and we'll put a nut and bolt through it exactly the same as with all the others, because there is a gap there just big enough on the top there to get a nut on. So that is the plan. So I'm going to have a fiddle around with this. It is about 20 to midnight now, so I'm not going to probably carry on with this much more tonight, but at least I've got it off and I can start on getting it sorted out. Let's carry on in the morning. Right, after a bit of persuasion, shall we say, head scratching and all the rest of it, I've come up with that, and I've gone over this face with a flapper disc in a grinder, and I've got 2 new studs in there now, slightly bigger diameter wise, and that should do the trick absolutely perfect. Now I know they fit through the exhaust holes, because the exhaust holes are slightly bigger anyway, so that should do the trick absolutely lovely. They're nice and solid in there. Actually managed to get 2 studs in rather than just one and a nut and bolt, so that's hopefully going to work all right. Obviously we'll find out when I try and bolt the exhaust up to it if it pulls out, but I've done them up as tight as I can do them with a nut, obviously running down to the bit of the stud that's not got a thread on it, if that makes sense, and they've wound right in really tight. This one's just about coming through the other side, and obviously this one can't because it's captive. So fingers crossed that should be that job done. Now all I've got to do is bolt it all back on again. Oh dear. Let's carry on. Right, I've just done a little test fit on this. I've put the manifold back on. I've not bolted it up yet, and I've just tried the exhaust through the studs and they fit absolutely perfect. So that is absolutely superb. So it's quite tight in here, as you would have seen from previous Reliant videos, so I'm going to spend a bit of time getting this all bolted back up. See the inlet manifold just sitting up there, I've just got it hovering above it. The exhaust manifold has to go on first and then the inlet manifold goes on after, or sort of same time as such. The gasket looks okay, so we're going to go with that again. I think that will be all right to reseal. Obviously if it's not when I get it running, then I'll have to take it back off again, but I'm pretty confident it's going to be okay. So I'm going to get this bolted back up and I'll come back to you once it's done, and we'll hopefully get it running and see what it sounds like. Just thought I'd show this while I've got it off the van. Obviously this gasket is in fine condition as far as being a gasket concerned, but you can see on both sides where that's been leaking for quite a long while. Obviously that black sooty bit there, and there's the other side the same. So definitely was leaking for a while, which obviously wouldn't help with the noise and wouldn't help with sort of gases and things coming into the cab. So definitely a good thing we're sorting this out. So I'm going to reuse this gasket. As I say, there's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't look that old, to be honest. We'll reuse that. That'll be absolutely fine. Get it bolted up nice and tight, and that should sort the problem out. Top banana. Right, as you can see, I've been laying under this van for a little while, and I have sorted out all of the mess that was ensuing under here. Got a new speedo cable on there, as you can see. I've taped up, there was some connections here which were just spay terminals, so what I've done is I've made sure they're clean and I've taped them up just to try and give them a bit of protection from that. And I've also had to see this white wire. This was for the little please pass sign in the back, and it was all running underneath the chassis, so I cut it there where those other joins were, and I've put one of those Carlos Fandango solder joints in there, so that's all soldered back up again with one of those joints, so it won't get any moisture in it. And obviously that all runs above the chassis now, as you can see in there. It all runs in one little bundle going along, so that is nice and neat. There's no wires hanging down anywhere, as you can see. If I come underneath the van a bit more, you'll see this side I've got the fuel line going over that top of that pipe there now, and it's cable tied to the brake line, and the new speedo cable again is cable tied to that too, so that is all kept out the way of that clutch rod over there, so that when the clutch rod goes up and down or backwards and forwards, it is not going to touch anything. So that is everything underneath the van, I think, now tidied up and cleaned up, so there's nothing going to spark out on the floor or get caught or anything like that. It's all safe and out of the way, so that is a lot better. Spinning around to the back, I did pull a fair bit of dead wiring out of here, because there was a load of wiring that was running to the back for, I think, a 12-volt socket that's no longer there, things like that. So yeah, it is looking a lot tidier. So I think the next thing now is I'll put some more fuel in it, because I think it ran out of fuel. Oh, that's another thing I've done. I got to the back there and the fuel gauge wasn't working. It wasn't even plugged in. So I found the wire for that, traced it back through and re-plugged that back in again. And now we've got a working fuel gauge again, because before it just went to absolutely pegged out maximum before, so obviously that wasn't right. So yeah, so that's really good. So we've got a working fuel gauge again now. Now the only thing I've got to sort out under the van now is at the front here. You can see another absolute hodgepodge of wires up there. Now for whatever reason, there are two horns up there, which you can just about see. One there and one there. Don't know why. Neither of them work. So there's one on a switch which doesn't work, and there's one on the horn button which doesn't work. So I'm possibly got to try and have a look at that and see whether I can sort that little mess out in there. I have done a few new connections inside the engine bay as well, because there was, as you can see there, the dreaded Scotch lock. There was lots of Scotch locks under the bonnet, which obviously aren't, oh, zoomed in a bit too far there, which aren't ideal. So I've done a couple of new connections under there. So yeah, that's slightly tidier, but try and do it always like going to be like unraveling the fabric of time, I think. So I'm just doing the basics to get it all sort of semi-safe and all working again. So yeah, apart from this bit of wiring under here on the horn, I think we can get it running and see whether our fix with the clutch works. In fact, I might do that next, just to give me a boost of sort of energy on keeping going, because that will make sure that that all works all right. Let's get it running and see if it goes into gear with it running. Right, this is the moment of truth. Let's see if this goes into gear while it's running. I'm not going to be able to move it obviously, because I'm on axle stands at the moment, but right, I need to switch that on. I've had this running, so it started easy, but I haven't tried this yet. Right, clutch down. Yes, it goes into gear. Yep, it engages. So that looks like the new clutch and bearing has done the job, which is absolutely superb. But it doesn't make any horrible noises. It goes into all the gears. Try reverse. Yep. So just lift the biting point and reverse. Yep, goes into the biting point and reverse as well. So that is absolutely superb. So it looks like we fixed our clutch problem. I'm going to sort that wiring out on the horn now, and then we can get this out and actually see if it moves. Top banana. Right, I got too excited. I've got it off the ramps. I've got to see if this thing drives. There we go. And I need to have a big clear up in the garage because it's a mess. Let's see if it moves. Right. Where the hell did all that come from? Oh. Firstly, I knocked over a big oil jug, which I thought was coming out the van, but it's not. It's coming out the jug on the floor. The second thing is, we've got the same issue as Justin's van, where it's gone past the reverse gate into no man's land in the gearbox, which means now it's actually stuck in first, I think, or third. So we're going to need to take that gearbox plate off the top again. I know I didn't show this thing on Justin's one particularly well, but there's a pin inside there, which, look at that mess, I'm going to have to clear that up. Anyway, yeah, we need to do that. So I'm going to take that gearbox plate back off the top. Thought that was going to be a reenactment of Del Boy then, when all the oil sludge came out the bottom of the van. but it wasn't. It was out of that jug there, what I drained out. So that's going to be a mess to clear up in a minute. I need to take that top plate off that gearbox and we'll see what's going on. Right, as you can see, I've moved a bit more out the garage now. Got it back in, or back out of gear and back into gear again. To show you this is the reason it does it. The first reason is this little top hat has too much play in it, and it lets the gear lever lift up slightly too high when you lift it up for reverse. So that needs snugging down. So we'll drill 2 new holes in that like we did on Justin's one, slightly further around, and that will tighten that down to that. And the second reason is, if I pop this off, it's just got like a little spring clip that holds this in, not very much. See this little clip here, that takes the gearbox off. You can see inside there's a pin on that inner piece there, and as you can see, it's a little bit worn. Just trying to focus in on it. It's a little bit worn. There we go, you can see it there now. So what I've actually done is I've put a flat bladed screwdriver in, and it was actually bent slightly this way, if that makes sense. So I've bent it slightly back the other way again, because it obviously got bent over. You can see it's got a few chips on the top of it. It's not too bad apart than that, so hopefully that will cure that. And obviously that being that little bit tighter on that top hat will hopefully aid that issue of it jumping out or going over the top into no man's land. I'm going to try that, and then we'll give it another go. As I say, I just reversed it back out the garage that little bit more, and that worked fine. So there's no issue with the clutch, because when I had the clutch pushed down when it was stuck in gear, it obviously wasn't moving. So as soon as I tried to let off the clutch, then it was obviously trying to go along. So the clutch itself, I think, is fine now. It's just this issue with this getting locked into the wrong gear as such. As I say, exactly the same as what we had problem with Justin's, where it got stuck in no man's land. So I'm gonna see if I can drill 2 more holes on that top hat. You can see it's just got 2 holes in it there. I'm gonna come around maybe a centimetre or so, drill 2 more holes very slightly further up. That will then snug this down and hold it tight, and that should hopefully sort out our issue. Any luck, let's get that done, and I'll come back to it in a minute. Just thought I'd show you this with the gear lever out the way. You can see how much slop's in this now, look. It's quite a lot. So that mount obviously allows that gear lever to skip over that little rod inside, and that's what allows it to go into no man's land. So it's probably about 3 or 4 mil, I guess. I'm going to measure that in a second. Get a caliper underneath it, so I know how much I've got to bring the holes up by, if that makes sense. And then that will hold that nice and snug down, and hopefully we won't have that issue anymore. So I want to get that marked up and drilled, and then I'll come back to you. Right, after 2 attempts, because the first one I did a little bit too high, wouldn't get the clip going, I've now drilled 2 more holes. So I've got effectively the original hole in the middle there, the ones I drilled slightly too high, and I went the other side, and I've gone slightly lower, and the clip's now in there. And as you can see, there is no slop in that at all now, and it goes into reverse. If I can do it, funny angle. There we go, that's reverse. Come straight back out again, first, second, third, fourth. So hopefully that should sort out our problem. So I'm going to give it another go, try to drive it and see what happens. Right, let's see if this works a bit better this time. Well, that would appear successful. Just went around the block in it. Seems to be all good. Biting point takes a bit of getting used to, but obviously it will do because I've not driven it before. So yeah, goes really well. A little bit of smoke burning off the manifold, exhaust manifold, where I've obviously changed the rocker cover gasket and there's a little bit of oil seeped out. But other than that, it seems absolutely fine. Top banana. Just thought I'd show you some of the gubbins that I've removed that was surplus to requirements. Here you can see a lot of old wiring, old connectors. Half of it wasn't connected. The bits that were connected I've reconnected with better joints. So that will hopefully improve things quite a lot. I'm not sure what the next job's going to be. It's going to be sorting out that front horn wiring, I think, so I'm going to carry on with that. Right, there we go. As you can see there now, the horn wiring has been massively simplified, basically back to the original again, and it now all works off the horn button in the middle of the steering wheel. So that is all good and done. I've got one last job to do, and that is we've got to fit a new alternator, because the one that's on the van, I'll show you in a minute, the rear mounting bit, rear mounting lug and the casting is actually snapped. So I'll get set up in there, we'll get that swapped over, and then that will be, I think, the final job on this little van. So it should be good to go. Top banana. Right, as you can see there, that is the bottom mount of the alternator. It's completely cracked in half, so I'm guessing by the looks of the top mount, which I'll show you in a minute, there's loads of washers on it. I'm guessing it hasn't been aligned right, so we're obviously going to do our best to make this so that it is correct how it should be, and obviously all in alignment. I'll get this one off, see where we're at, and obviously have a look at the new one, make sure it all goes on all right, and go from there. Right, we've got our old alternator out with the snapped bracket off the back of it. No idea why that would have snapped like that, but it has. I was laying underneath the van and looked up, and I was looking underneath to see what else I needed to tidy up, and saw that there. So we've obviously got a nice new one from CHG Classics. Thanks again, James at CHG Classics, for that. We've got a lovely new Beck alternator in here. I'll get it out of the box with one hand. There we go. Nice new unit. Got the Beck tag on it, look. Red tag on it, so it proves it's a genuine one. There we go. So basically we're going to do a reverse of what we've just done. Get this fitted on, and hopefully that should be job done. Should be a nice straightforward swap. It's got the same plug on the back, so that's good. Yeah, so should be top banana. I'll get this put on and I'll show you once it's done. Right, there we go. As you can see there, that is our nice new alternator bolted in. It's held in with literally 3 bolts. You've seen me do it on other vans as well. One, you can just about see the back bolt there, the bottom just underneath that bar has got a long spacer in it. The front one's got a short spacer in it, and then the adjuster at the top has no spacers. And as you can see there now, there's no washers packing that top adjuster out anymore. So that should be all good to go. All I'm going to do now is get it started up, check that it's charging. It has still got a voltage regulator on this van, which for some reason has been left there when the last alternator was put on, which isn't technically needed, but I'm curious to see obviously if it's all charging all right and everything else with that in place as it was. So I'll check that out. I'll do it on camera in a second. I'll get set up and I'll come back to you and we'll see if it's all right. As you can see there, that is charging 14.6, 14.7, 14.5. It dots about a little bit. That does actually seem to be charging absolutely fine, so that's really good. So I think that is the job done on that side of things. The only thing I have noticed is it's very, very close down there to, yeah, see this or not, hang on. Quite close down here to that hose. That's the only thing I'm a little bit concerned about, so I may end up getting a slightly shorter belt for this, the same as I did with the Stobart van, just so that it brings it away from that hose a little bit on the rad, because you've only got to have that move slightly and then that's going to take that out. There you go, up to 14.15 volts now, 14.16, so it's doing alright. Choked out slightly at the moment. You've got no ignition lights on the dash, that's all still alright. Fuel gauge is working, so I think we are good to go, apart from maybe changing that belt. Top banana. Right then, that is going to be it for this episode on MEC-TEC. I think we've pretty much covered all we're going to do on the Trotter van. There's a couple of little finishing details I need to do. I'm going to get some sealing strip to go around those interior engine panels, and I need to change a bulb in the front indicator because that has gone. It's not flashing on one side. Apart from that, I think we're pretty much there. I might take it out for another spin around the block, make sure that it's all working as it should be and all that sort of thing. But other than that, we have done all the jobs and more that we set out to do. There was always stuff that's found along the way. It came in just for a clutch and ended up being all sorts of different things. So there we are, that's all right. That's obviously improved it a hell of a lot, made it safer hopefully as well. There's nothing hanging down underneath it anymore, which is always a good start. So yeah, there we go. If you do like what you see, make sure you hit that subscribe button down there. In fact, there's 4 things: like, subscribe, share, and hit the notification bell to tell you every time I upload a video. It costs you nothing and it really helps me out on the channel, so I would really appreciate it if you could do those things. Remember, I have got Instagram as well, MEC_TEC1985, and I have got Facebook, MEC-TEC, for little sneak peeks during the week of what I'm up to. And all it is left for me to say is thank you very much for watching, and if you want to join me soon for more automotive ventures, I'll see you again next time. Cheers guys.